Behold! Look into my eyes! When you see me on a show, when you see these fans, you know you've got the best in the damn world.
This is the Wrestling Matters podcast where we stand up for professional wrestling.
Here we fucking go!
Well, enough is enough, and it's time for a change!
Professional wrestling! This is it! This is us standing up! Yes! 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 Yes!
That's 13-14!
Dina, I am the best in the world.
Cause that's the bottom line. Cause Stone Cold said so.
What's going on, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome to episode 121 of the Wrestling Matters podcast. My name is Anthony Walker, as always, each and every week here on the Swerve Network and the YouTube channel andWWE Wrestling Matters, as well as SoundCloud and Spreaker.com for the time being at least, and maybe Mixcloud here and there. I don't know. I don't know. I'm in two minds about that website. I'm here to bring you my thoughts, news, views, and opinions in the world of professional wrestling. Hope you guys have enjoyed the week. That is the wrestling week, the draft and all that. Yes, I will talk about the draft later on in the show. I will talk about Raw as well as the Smackdown live show and the draft, and a little bit of hint on the bad side of the draft, the one bad side, which I'll get to in a second. Also, I will talk, yes, reluctantly, I will talk TNA, I will talk Ring of Honor, I will talk about ICW's Shugs Hoose Party and preview that as well later on in the show, so look out for that. Also, I will go through a countdown by World Culture Wrestling on the 8 biggest raids in wrestling history. Okay, so stay tuned for that. It is a very interesting topic. I will do that in the final part of the podcast. That is the main event of this podcast, guys, so stay tuned for that. As always, guys, check out the Swerve Network each and every week. You can listen to the Wrestling Matters podcast. Also, you can listen to Max Wrestling with Daddy Dangerously, Craig Phoenix, Evan McCabe and Co. Sunday Segue with Kenny and Shugs. Always a pleasure. Also, Evan McCabe on his own podcast. That's if he still does his own podcast. I'm pretty sure he does, but I don't know. But be sure to check them all out, as well as the Offshoot Radio crew with James Belmont and Co. Each and every week. End on the Swerve Network. All the links to the Swerve Network will be in the description below on YouTube, SoundCloud, and the Swerve Network as well, even on Spreaker. So be sure to check them out as well. Also, much love and a huge thank you to Mystery Island. Please check out Mystery Island, facebook.com/Back to the Island. Be sure to check them out. 56 to 58 Birkenhead, Oxton Road in Birkenhead, that is. And as I'm doing this recording right now, I just received in the mail today the autograph signed by one D'Lo Brown. Thank you so much for that, guys. That is twice in my life I have got that guy's autograph. I got the guy's autograph when he came up here for a Middlesbrough show at one time, which featured him and Raven and the Sandman. And I've also got his autograph again. So thank you so much for that, guys. It's greatly appreciated as well. Hopefully to do something on TNT Wrestling as well very soon. I've got something like that in the pipeline. I've got to start promoting that often as well. Shout out to everybody at TNT Wrestling, Extreme Wrestling, in fact. So be sure to check that out as well. And I'm going to watch the rest of that DVD. I haven't had time to watch the rest of that DVD because I've been so busy with stuff and everything going back. And I'm going back to work July 30th, which I'm very much looking forward to. I'm going to sign the contract. The first match is not until August 13th, so I'm looking forward to that as well. And yeah, I've just been a busy boy. Also, a little quick promotion as well. Big shout out to WCPW each and every week. Tune in each and every Monday. Well, right after WCPW on YouTube, I will be doing a podcast. I don't know when it comes out, but I end up recording it and making it right after the show's over. So if it's not out on the day after, or right after the stream, it's out on a Tuesday. So you will get it at some point. Also, check them out as well. They've got the new WCPW YouTube channel as well for the WCPW stuff as well. World Culture Wrestling as well. Be sure to check that out. And they've made an announcement this week, October 6th, ladies and gentlemen, October 6th, at WCPW, Cody Rhodes will be coming to WCPW. You heard me correct. Cody Rhodes, Stardust, whatever the heck you want to call him, he'll be coming to WCPW October 6th. You heard me correct. So that should be interesting, and that is huge for WCPW. They've had a lot of stuff as well, a lot of big players coming in. Even Eric Bischoff's coming as well to WCPW for one night only though, but Eric Bischoff is coming to WCPW as well, so be sure to check that out. All the Wall Culture links will be in the description below, so be sure to check that out. Also check out Max Wrestling's YouTube channel, Sunday Segway's YouTube channel as well, and also check out The Altered Angle with my good buddies Pepe Brooks and Josh Dillon as well. Be sure to check out their new episode as well at The Altered Angle on Twitter. Also, guys, a lot of stuff I'm going to get through here, but I want to talk about the one piece of the puzzle that really pissed me off this week in the draft. The club are no more. Be sure to check out my predictions for Battleground as well. That's gone up this past week. I will be doing a review at some point. As this is out, there should be a review up, so check that out as well. But yeah, okay. Battleground will be the last time the club are together for the time being. But the only way this makes sense, because Carl Anderson and Doc Gallows are now on Raw, Styles is on Smackdown, and yes, John Cena is there with him. So it looks like Styles will be facing John Cena all by his lonesome. And does this make sense? I don't know, quite frankly. I don't know what to make of this, if I'm being honest. But yeah, it is what it is, guys. The club is no more. Wondering if this opens the door now for Finn Balor to come up and join them, because there was talks about Finn turning heel when he came to the main roster. He is on the main roster. I'll go into big detail about that later on. So it's an ever-go place, you know. It's in two minds. What will happen? It's very interesting to know what will happen. But will Finn Balor be the new member? Will the club still be in existence, but will Finn Balor join? We'll have to wait and see. But all we know is at the end of the day, Gallows and Anderson are on Raw, Styles is on SmackDown. Unless there's a trade going on that we don't know about, but that's what it is at the moment in time. We shall see, though. We shall see. I'll talk more about the draft later on in part 3, so stay tuned for that, guys. And yeah, a lot of other things that have went down in the wrestling world as well. It seems Del Rio and Paige are no more as far as their relationship goes, at least from what I've read on NoDQ.com. So it is what it is. That's all I'm saying on that one. It is what it is. And I'll be honest with you, I knew that wasn't going to last. They seemed like an odd couple. Not taking nothing away from both of them, but they seemed like an odd couple. So I kind of knew that wasn't going to last at the end of the day, but then again, who cares? Also, I want to bring up something this week. I have seen a lot of videos this past week about CM Punk and, you know, top 10s of who was coming back in the draft area, all the surprises. There was no surprises in the draft. But I'm sorry, guys, if I hear another thing about CM Punk coming back to WWE or wrestling in general, I am seriously going to kill myself. I'm sorry. I'm going to kill myself, okay? He is not coming back. And if he comes back, who knows? Who's to say he won't come back in WWE? There's rumors about him, you know, being hostile to WWE for what they did to him when they allegedly, supposedly, give him his notice on his wedding day. And apparently he's still holding grudges from what I've read. Who can blame him? So at the end of the day, it's driving me insane seeing all these pictures and that. And everybody's entitled to their opinions, you know, entitled to their opinions and whatnot. But it's over, guys. I hope he does come back. I'm a big CM Punk fan. But at the end of the day, let it go. It's over. Okay? And he's fighting in September, which I'm very much looking forward to because I want to see this. You know, I want to see if he can hack it in the UFC. Because who knows? He may come back if he loses his first fight. But at the end of the day, they're not doing to him what they did to Brock Lesnar and throwing him into the deep end. Because Brock had a background anyway, so that's why it took him 3 fights or 4 fights to win the UFC title. They're not doing that with Punk. You know, they're building him from the ground up and hopefully they can get something out of it. So he's taking his time with this, which is a good thing in the way. Will he hack it? You know, will it work? I guess we'll find out in September. But, you know, I'm very much looking forward to seeing that, see how that pans out. Do I want CM Punk to come back to wrestling? Hell yeah, I do. But just remember, guys, he might not come back to WWE. Just think about that. But for now, is he coming back to WWE or wrestling in 2016? Hell no. And like I say, guys, if I see another video, everybody's entitled to their opinions, but even I'm getting sick of this CM Punk coming back to WWE thing now. It's driving me insane. And if I see another one, I'm seriously going to kill myself. It's over, guys. CM Punk is in the UFC. Deal with it. Right. Sorry about that little rant there, guys, but I had to get that off my chest. That's what happens when stuff drives me crazy. And that about wraps it up for this part, guys. I've got nothing else to talk about as well. So, yeah, that about wraps it up for this part. I'll be back after this little quick timeout with Raw. I'll go through Raw, and I'll go through SmackDown in depth, though. Because not only will I talk about the matches that took place on SmackDown, I will go through the bad points and the good points about the draft as well. So the SmackDown review this week is coming in 2 parts. And also be sure to stick around for the main event, which is the 8 wrestling or biggest wrestling raids in wrestling history. So stay tuned for that. A lot to get through here on the Wrestling Matters podcast. See you in a bit. If you like the Wrestling Matters podcast, why not check out their Facebook page at facebook.com/WM podcast and like the page and show your support to the podcast that stands up for professional wrestling, the Wrestling Matters podcast. Wrestling Matters, wrestling fans. What's going on, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome back to part 2 of the Wrestling Matters podcast. It is now time for the Raw review. Raw review time. All right, I'll go through what happened. I'll go through what happened first, and then I'll talk about certain points of what happened and whatever. Stephanie McMahon and Shane McMahon announced their new general managers of Raw and SmackDown, respectively. And Raw was Mick Foley. SmackDown, Shane announced that it was going to be Daniel Bryan that will take over. This was, well, I think we all knew it was going to be Daniel Bryan eventually. I don't think anybody believed it, but I think we all knew eventually it was going to be Daniel Bryan because it was all over the internet. Thank you, Dirt Sheets. Anyway, Cesaro and Sami Zayn beat Kevin Owens and Chris Jericho. Darren Young got a big win over Alberto Del Rio, using the chicken wing, I believe. The Club and the Wyatt family in a 12-man tag, I believe, beat John Cena, Enzo Amore, Big Cass, and the tag champions New Day. Baron Corbin made a statement by beating Sin Cara. Sasha Banks and Becky Lynch beat Women's Champion Charlotte and Dana Brooke via disqualification. US Champion Rusev and Sheamus, a little reunion of the League of Nations, beat Dolph Ziggler and Zack Ryder. And Dean Ambrose and Seth Rollins' match ends in a controversial draw for the WWE Championship. I'll get to that in a second. But yeah, we all knew it was going to be Daniel Bryan that would take over the general manager position on Raw, on SmackDown rather. I never saw Foley coming though. He must have worked out some deal because Foley's going to be the GM of ICW's Fear and Loathing in November. So, or commissioner, whatever it is he's going to do. So that will be interesting to see. Baron Corbin making a huge statement. A really big statement against Sin Cara, and you made an even bigger statement you got an even bigger chance to make a bigger statement on SmackDown. We'll go back to that in a second, in part 3 rather. Yeah, not really big, but Raw was good, very predictable at times, but good nonetheless. It wasn't good, it wasn't great, it wasn't bad, it was average. But the thing that spoiled it for me, because WWE Champion Dean Ambrose and Seth Rollins ended in a draw. And Stephanie was so hell-bent to get the WWE Championship on Raw. She pronounced that Seth Rollins was the champion to end Raw. But that wasn't the case. Both ended in a draw. The match ended in a draw, so that means Dean Ambrose ends up retaining. This whole thing got cleared up on WWE Network right after the show went off air. And, you know, because Stephanie was so hell-bent of trying to bring the WWE title to Raw, she ends up sticking a beak in and announcing that Seth Rollins was the champion, which clear as day. And like I said in the predictions, Dean Ambrose was going to take the belt to SmackDown. He was going to win the championship. And if you've seen Battleground, you know what happened. Check out my review on that one. But, yeah, Stephanie could be so frustrating at times. And she also announced as well on Raw that the Cruiserweight division's coming back. That's right, CWC and all that has inspired the Cruiserweight division, and it'll be exclusive to Raw. So that's good for a way, But at the end of the day, you're going to need something big to fill in 3 hours of Raw. And I've already made myself on my piece clear on what I think of, what happened on Raw and what I think of this whole brand, the two brands competing again, Raw being 3 hours, SmackDown being 2 hours. I truly believe SmackDown's going to be the better show. I'm hoping, make me eat my words, make me eat my words. But I truly think SmackDown's going to be the better show because it's 2 hours. Raw, 3 hours of that, I don't think it's going to work. I really don't. They need to drop an hour and make it 2 hours, and they need to do it quick. Because 3 hours of Raw compared to 2 hours of SmackDown, I think SmackDown's got the better deal out of that, if you ask me. So we'll see how it goes. Like I say, time will tell if I'm right or wrong, but we'll see how it goes. But I still believe that SmackDown is and will be the better show out of the whole thing. That's just my opinion on that. That's just my, opinion on that. You know what, guys? I'm not going to wait till part 3. I'm going to talk about SmackDown right now. I might talk about the draft in part 3. We'll see how it goes. But let's talk about SmackDown results and everything. Right, SmackDown results. The SmackDown matches were John Cena beating Luke Gallows. Rollins... Well, let's talk about the matches first. John Cena beats Luke Gallows. Darren Young and Zack Ryder defeat Rusev and The Miz. Bray Wyatt destroys Xavier Woods. Demon Kane versus Kevin Owens ends in a no contest because Sami Zayn gets involved and chokeslams them both. Kane, that is. Charlotte and Dana Brooke defeat Sasha Banks in a 2-on-1 handicap match, sets up the tag match at Battleground. Chris Jericho defeats Cesaro, impressively I might add. Alicia Fox and Natalya ends in a no contest because I think she gets jumped by Becky Lynch in that. And Dean Ambrose and Seth Rollins. Dean Ambrose, rights the wrong from Raw and beats Seth Rollins. Both matches on Raw were great. Both matches were very good. Very good. But I think the SmackDown one was better because we got a decisive winner. And that move that Seth Rollins does when he suplexes it off the top rope and then picks you up and it hits you into the Falcon Arrow, well, Ambrose countered that into the Dirty Deeds and got the victory. And as we know it right now, going into Battleground, the WWE title was on SmackDown rather. You will find out if you've seen Battleground, you will know where the WWE title is. Hopefully it'll be on SmackDown. Very impressive win. Very impressive to see the Demon Kane, who also got drafted in the draft. Darren Young gets a win. I believe he got the victory over Miz. Made Miz tap out with the chicken wing that he's got from Bob Backlund. Bray Wyatt destroys Xavier Woods. He got drafted. I'll talk about that in part 3 rather. And yeah, the Demon Kane, Charlotte and Dana Brooke sets up their match with Sasha at the Battleground, the 2-on-1 handicap match. Why was it a 2-on-1 handicap match? I do not know. And yeah, that was the Raw result. That was the Raw and SmackDown results and talking points in that. I will end this part here, guys, and I'll be back in part 3 with the draft results. I will go through the draft results and I will talk about them as I go through them, what the good and bad was. You already got a little bit of the bad in terms of the club and everything splitting up, but I'll get to that in more detail in part 3, so stay tuned.
There's only one wrestling podcast that gives you honest, uncut opinions and the most unique trivia since WWE did The Weakest Link. And the only place you can hear the show-stealing podcast promo every single week.
Covering WWE, TNA, Ring of Honor, Lucha Underground. Max Wrestling Podcast is the place for you. Join myself, Evan Money Michaela, The Phoenix, and the Butcher, Sundays at 7 p.m. UK time, 2 p.m. Eastern time with your host, Danny Dangerously, on VOC Nation and the Swerve Talk Network.
Go to maxwrestling.wix.com/maxwrestling or follow us at maxwrestling UK for more details.
Give in to the madness.
Be sure to listen to the Sunday Segway Wrestling Podcast.
What?
Every Sunday with Kenny Killer and the gal them sugar Shugs.
Yes! Yes!
With all the news, views, and laughter that you want.
They like jet airplanes. They like long limousines.
Every Sunday, the Sunday Segway Wrestling Podcast on Podomatic, iTunes, and YouTube.
So why don't you choke on that, slap nut?
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to part 3 of the Wrestling Matters podcast. And like I said, we're going to go into the draft. I'm going to run through. There were 11 rounds altogether. There were 11 rounds. There were 6 on the TV show, which was Smackdown, and 7 on the draft center, and 6 on the draft center, I believe. No, 5 on the draft center, because it goes into 11. And poor old Heath Slater was undrafted. What that means for him, I don't know. But anyway, Seth Rollins drafted to Raw was the number 1 pick. The number 1 pick for SmackDown was Dean Ambrose, the WWE champion. I think Raw made a little mistake on that one. They should have went for Ambrose first, but I know how big Seth is on Raw and how big Stephanie is with Seth Rollins and all that. And it's good for Dean Ambrose as well. She doesn't have to put up with Stephanie anymore. Or he doesn't have to put up with Stephanie anymore. The women's champion was on Raw as well, Charlotte. That's huge. AJ Styles on SmackDown. And Finn Balor goes to Raw. Now, I hope, like I said in the start of this podcast, I hope Finn joins the club. Because that's the only way the club splitting up will make sense. Round 2 was Roman Reigns to Raw. Mick Foley decides to go with Monday Night Raw with John Cena 2.0 on Raw. John Cena goes to SmackDown. Now, this one's going to be interesting. Brock Lesnar then goes to Raw as the 8th pick. Number 9, choose SmackDown, Randy Orton. So that match at SummerSlam now is now an interpromotional match. The match now at SummerSlam is now interpromotional. So it's going to be Raw versus SmackDown at SummerSlam, which makes it even more interesting. And the fact that it's on my birthday weekend, yes. Birthday Friday, whatever on Saturday, SummerSlam on Sunday. Anyway, number 10's pick in round 2 was the New Day. Every single one on the New Day. So the New Day are not splitting up, which is good, quite frankly. Round 3, Sami Zayn and Bray Wyatt was number 12. Sami Zayn went to Raw. Bray Wyatt went to SmackDown. Sasha Banks went to Raw. Becky Lynch went to SmackDown. Chris Jericho went to Raw, which was good. Now, a smart move by Daniel Bryan in this round, which was round 4, because Raw chose Rusev and Lana, so now Raw has the United States Championship. SmackDown choose The Miz and Maryse, so now they have the Intercontinental Championship, which is, I think they got a better pick out of that because they got the better belt out of the two, although I don't think they've got the better wrestler out of that as well, because, well, less say about The Miz, the better. Kevin Owens went to Raw, Baron Corbin went to SmackDown, and you will see Enzo and Big Cass on Raw. Gallows and Anderson on Raw. American Alpha, that was the best draft of the night by SmackDown. That's why SmackDown won this draft, in my opinion, because they went and chose American Alpha. Nothing against Gallows and Anderson, but those guys are a big deal, a huge deal on NXT, or were a huge deal on NXT, and they are, oh man, they're going to be huge on SmackDown, big time. Big Show goes to Raw. Dolph Ziggler goes to SmackDown, which will be big for him because it'll be a fresh start for him. And hopefully he'll get a better push and a better usage. And Nia Jax goes to Raw from NXT. And I don't know why this is a troll, to be honest with you, because everybody thought it was Bayley. But I don't have a problem with Nia Jax going to Raw. Neville, the returning Neville, goes to Monday Night Raw. Natalya goes to SmackDown, probably to renew a feud with Becky Lynch. Cesaro goes to Raw. Alberto Del Rio goes to SmackDown. Probably because Paige is on Raw, I believe. Sheamus goes to Raw. And that was the end of the television draft. Okay? Now we go on to the draft center, which took place on the network after. How the hell did these get a draft? Round 7 announced on the draft center on the network, which saw Golden Truth go to Raw. Good job, Stephanie. Yeah, good job. The John Cena of the tag team division goes to SmackDown. I think SmackDown got a better pick out of that, if I'm being honest. Titus O'Neil goes to Raw. Demon Kane goes to SmackDown. And Paige goes to Raw, like we all know. Darren Young and Bob Backlund go to Raw. Kalisto comes to SmackDown. Sin Cara goes to Raw. That is the end of the Lucha Dragons. Naomi goes to SmackDown. Jack Swagger comes to Raw. And Ascension go to SmackDown. I don't know why. They're useless. But anyway. Zack Ryder goes to SmackDown right after the Dudley Boys are announced to go to Raw. Summer Rae goes to Raw. Apollo Crews on SmackDown. Mark Henry goes to Raw. And Alexia Bliss goes to SmackDown from NXT. The end of the Wyatt family, ladies and gentlemen. Braun Strowman goes to Raw. Breezango goes to SmackDown. Bo Dallas goes to Raw, poor Stephanie. Eva Marie goes to SmackDown, which was very weird. Vaudevillains go to SmackDown right after they announced that the Shining Stars, Primo and Epico, will go into Raw. Alicia Fox will be on Raw. This is round 11, the final round. Alicia Fox on Raw, Dana Brooke on Raw as well to join her buddy, Charlotte. Eric Rowan goes to SmackDown. Now, this is what you've got to understand, guys. The Wyatt family. People are saying that's the end of the Wyatt family. I've just said it there because Braun Strowman is now on Raw. Eric Rowan and Bray Wyatt are on SmackDown. But what you guys have got to realize and you guys have got to, understand, it's not necessarily the end of the Wyatt family. Yes, the Wyatt family had 3. Strowman, Rowan, and Bray. Don't forget about Luke Harper. Luke Harper could get drafted to SmackDown. Think about it. Carmella goes to SmackDown. Mojo Rawley goes to SmackDown as well. So I think basically, I think SmackDown's got a new tag team there in Ryder and Mojo. Curtis Axel goes to Raw as well. So whether that's the end of the Curtis Axel on Raw, Bo Dallas. Let me just check that. Curtis Axel on Raw, Bo Dallas on Raw. That might be the end of... and I just read a little comment out here that I wrote. That was here. Daniel Morgan. I'm going with SmackDown. Shane and Daniel are going to take SmackDown to a whole new level. Let's go SmackDown. And you know what? It's hard not to disagree with that, guys. It really is not hard not to disagree with that. Because I believe, like I said in part 2, I believe SmackDown's got the better deal out of this. I really, truly believe that. That's just my opinion on it, but I really, truly believe that SmackDown has got the huge and the better deal out of it. That's just my opinion, though. But like I said, time will tell if I'm right or wrong. Right, that is the end of the drafts. Hope you guys have enjoyed that week, and hope you guys have enjoyed part 2 and part 3 of the podcast. And I'll be back in part 4 with a roundup of NXT and Ring of Honor. So stay tuned.
If you like the Wrestling Matters podcast, why not follow the Wrestling Matters podcast now on Twitter at WM Podcast for all professional wrestling news. Wrestling Matters, wrestling fans.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to part 4. Now we're going to get down to the NXT and Ring of Honor. Still to come on the podcast, yes, I'll talk about TNA and ICW's Shugs Hoose Party, along with the 8 biggest talent raids in wrestling history. So, that's still to come. For now, let's talk about NXT. NXT matches this week were NXT champion Samoa Joe beats Rhino in a non-title match. Austin Aries beats Patrick Clark. Bayley gives Nia Jax a goodbye that she'll probably won't forget by beating her 1-on-1. And the Authors of Pain destroy American Alpha, sending them on their merry way to SmackDown. So, it seems that Rhino will not be getting his championship match that he probably wanted, because that's what he probably would have got if he'd have beat Samoa Joe, because Samoa Joe beat him. And for those of you that don't know, the Authors of Pain are a tag team that are managed by Paul Ellering, former Legion of Doom manager, the original manager of Legion of Doom, the guy who brought them to the Promised Land. There's a feud going on between No Way Jose and Austin Aries, and it seems that it's even heated up after Austin's match with Patrick Clark. And Bayley and Nia Jax go 1-on-1, and like I said, Bayley managed to get the victory, sending Nia Jax on her merry way to the Raw roster. So that was pretty much it for NXT this week on that. So now, that's pretty much all I got to say on it. So now I'll jump in to Ring of Honor. Ring of Honor had a promo that was cut by BJ Whitmer and Kevin Sullivan, calling out Steve Corino and trying to wake him up and make him realize he is an evil man. That feud is not over by a long shot. Shane Taylor and Keith Lee, two big monsters that apparently showed their willingness and showed what they can do at the hands of the War Machine, which cost the War Machine the Ring of Honor World Tag Team titles. They destroyed two local competitors. Jay White beat Kamatachi in his debut and then got the victory over the Addiction in the six-man tag as well. Apparently Kamatachi is a member of the Addiction, considering what happened to him when he helped the Addiction retain the tag team titles at the expense of the Motor City Machine Guns. And probably, I don't know whether to call this a surprise or not to me, but Dalton Castle beat Roderick Strong in the main event, which was an awesome wrestling match, which saw Strong make a mistake and get countered right into Dalton's finishing move, which got Dalton Castle the win. So that's a huge win for Dalton Castle, and a huge win probably in his quest to be Ring of Honor World Champion, because I'm pretty sure he's going to be up there with the upper echelons to go for the Ring of Honor World Championship at some point. You know, he has to be after beating somebody like Roderick Strong. And a very impressive MVP debut, rather, for Jay White as well, and that guy's got a big future ahead of him too. He beat Kamatachi, and then he got the pinfall victory over Christopher Daniels in the six-man tag as well, which was the impromptu six-man tag right after the Kamatachi match he had. And yeah, you know, kudos to him, man, for real. Right, guys, that about wraps this side up for Ring of Honor and NXT. Sorry it's so short, but yeah, that's basically all it is. And I'll be back right after this quick timeout. I'll run through the TNA results as well. I won't talk about it too much. It'll probably be at the same length as this. And then in the next part after that, I will talk about ICW's Shugs Hoose Party. That's right. Preview it a little bit, find the matches, preview it a little bit, and see where it goes. So, see you in a bit. Be sure to check out the Wrestling Matters channel at www.youtube.com/AJW Wrestling Matters for my exclusive review series that I'm doing on WCPW, What Culture Pro Wrestling, brought to you by the good folks at WhatCulture.com. Each and every week, I'll be reviewing their shows, whether it's loaded or their big upcoming shows as well, each and every week on their YouTube channel. Be sure to check out the Wrestling Matters channel for review shows each and every week. You can also download them for free on SoundCloud. Wrestling Matters, wrestling fans. What's going on, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome back to the episode that is the Wrestling Matters Podcast, episode 112. And right now, we're going to get right into some TNA. Yeah, I'm going to reluctantly talk about TNA. The matches were Jeff Hardy, Mike Bennett. Mike Bennett beats Jeff Hardy. That was in the Bound for Glory playoff. Another Bound for Glory playoff was Matt Hardy and James Storm, and Matt wins that. EC3 beats Eli Drake in the Bound for Glory playoffs. God knows what that video was of the opening to Impact from Cameron, North Carolina, with the Hardy Boys and everything, but anyway, I don't even want to know. Drew Galloway beats Bram in the playoffs, and the Six Sides of Steel match, which saw Bobby Lashley, Eddie Edwards, title for title, a rematch from last week, Destination X, I almost said Destination America there, Destination X show, Six Sides of Steel though this time, no interference from Bennett or Moose. And there seems to be something developing there. I think a tag team match is on the pipelines. Lashley, Edwards versus Moose and Bennett at some point. We'll have to wait and see. But Bobby Lashley beat Eddie Edwards. Not only is he now the TNA World Heavyweight Champion, he is also the X Division Champion. That's right. So what's going to happen to the X Division title? I don't know. But Eddie Edwards risked it all and lost. So we'll have to wait and see how that takes shape, if you will. Right, Insane Championship Wrestling. I'm going to do in this part. I'm just trying to look for the matches that are going to take place on July 31st, which is Shugs Hoose Party Try and say that 10 times fast. Seriously. Shugs Hoose Party. It's not an easy thing. Yeah, there's been some changes, but I'll go through them. And I might be giving some spoilers in this as well. But anyway, sorry, I got caught out there a minute. But anyway, back to this. We have Damo one-on-one with Joe Coffey. That's right, you heard me. Joe Coffey for the ICW Heavyweight Championship of the world. And Damo has been dominant since he won the championship. Coffey wants that title so bad he could taste it. And this is an opportunity. This will probably has the potential to steal the show. It's a hard one, though. It's a very, very difficult one, to know what's going to go down. Because I don't know what the heck's going to go down. It's very difficult to see how this is going to pan out. And it's hard to choose. But I think Joe Coffey might nick it. I think they're building Joe up. And I think they're going to put the belt on Joe and give him his run. That's what they're going to do. That's my take on it. I won't be disappointed if Damo wins because he's been a hell of a champion. But I think it's time for Joe to get the belt and become the champion that he wants to be. I'm not doubting that Damo will not win. He probably will. But I thought they were going to keep the belt on Grado for a longer period, but they didn't. And they had him win it at Fear and Loathing, and he dropped it to Chris Renfrew at that Royal Rumble show they do as well. So the show they did in January, I can't remember what they call the name. This is the thing. At the end of the day, I don't know what the heck's going to happen in that match. All I know is Joe's going to win. That's my prediction anyway. DCT in a steel cage with Bram, a year in the making, because last year Bram powerbombed his wife, Viper, and DCT is looking for a big payback, and I think he's going to get it. DCT will win this match in the cage, but it's going to be interesting nonetheless, and I'm very much looking forward to that match as well. There's a 6-man tag involving Legion and Mustache Mountain and Lewis Garvin. I think Legion might win that one. That's my prediction on that. Team Dallas versus Team Black Label. Team Lightning, whatever you want to call it. Team Dallas versus the Black Label. Now sees it as a 6-man tag. It is a 6-man tag now. Because it's going to be Drew Galloway, Jack Jester, and now Wolfgang's involved for Black Label. And now it's going to be Team Dallas with Grado, Noam Dar, and a mystery partner. Which many people believe it may be BT Gunn. It's not a 100% guarantee, but everybody's assuming it's going to be BT Gunn. I don't think so, to be honest with you. I have a funny feeling I know it's going to be. It might be BT Gunn, I don't know. But I have a funny feeling I know it might be. I might be wrong. We'll find out on July 31st. And Mark Dallas will get full control. Well, 50% of it anyway. He'll get 50% control. Mark Dallas will get 50% control of his company back. And it'll be 50-50 Red Lightning, Mark Dallas. Phase 1 of Dallas's plan will be complete. Because he'll get his company back. Kenny Williams challenges Lionheart for the Zero-G title. And I don't know, I see Kenny Williams winning that one, to be honest. In this rivalry, I see Kenny Williams becoming the Zero-G champion again at some point. I think it'll be that as well. So that should be very interesting. And there's a video, like I said, check out ICW on demand, ICW on the Facebook page as well. Facebook.com/Insane Wrestling. Check it all out, guys, man. It's gonna be a big deal. Shugs Hoose Party. If you can watch it on demand service, or you can watch it on iPay-per-view. Your choice. Or hell, buy it on iPay-per-view and then watch it the next day on the on-demand service. See how it goes. Like I said, Mustache Mountain as well. It was meant to be, I think it was meant to be Trent Severin and Mikey Whiplash at first, but then it's now being changed to a 6-man tag, and it's going to be Legion, Mustache Mountain against Lewis Gavin, and I see Legion winning that one. So, all in all, guys, that will all take place July 31st at Shugs Hoose Party. So, it's either way, it's going to be interesting. No question about that. So, with that being said, guys, that is the end of this part. Hope you guys have enjoyed it, and I'll be back in the final part with the main event, 8 biggest talent raids in wrestling history. So stay tuned. I'll be back right after this.
If you like the Wrestling Matters podcast, why not follow the Wrestling Matters podcast now on Twitter at WM Podcast for all professional wrestling news. Wrestling Matters, wrestling fans.
Be sure to listen to the Sunday Segway Wrestling Podcast.
What?
Every Sunday with Kenny Killer and the Galdem Sugar Shugs.
Yes! Yes!
With all the news, views, and laughter that you want.
They like jet airplanes. Woo! They like long limousines.
Every Sunday, the Sunday Segway Wrestling Podcast on Podomatic, iTunes, and YouTube.
So why don't you choke on that, slap nut?
What's up, everybody? This is Johnny Ferrari in Las Vegas, and you're listening to the Swerve Talk Network featuring Max Wrestling, Sunday Seg, Offshoot Radio, and more at the Swerve Talk Network on Twitter for more information. Woohoo!
Right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the final part of the Wrestling Matters podcast. Hope you guys are well. Hope you guys have enjoyed the podcast, the ICW, Shugs House Party predictions and stuff like that as well. More of that next week. I have no idea when I'm going to put on the show next week. Should I do the Shugs House Party review next week? I don't know. We will see how things go. Also, guys, quick reminder, Swerve Talk Network is where you can listen to the Wrestling Matters podcast as well as other podcasts as well, but go to the Swerve Talk Network, Max Wrestling, Sunday Segway, Evan McCabe if he still does his podcast, and Offshoot Radio as well. Be sure to check them all out on the Swerve Talk Network each and every weekend. I know, because I'm always last on Monday, so be sure to check them out. 9 o'clock, you can listen to the podcast at 9 o'clock UK time, which is 4 p.m. Eastern time as well. Be sure to check everybody out, show them some love, because they are great shows. Also, like I said earlier on, guys, check out Mystery Island, facebook.com/Back to the Island. All the information, the websites, the YouTube and stuff like that will be on their website there. So facebook.com/Back to the Island. All the links will be in the description below. Check out their YouTube channels. Check it all out, because you will not be disappointed. And a big thank you to David Anderson and everybody at Mystery Island for my D'Lo Brown signed autograph. I have now a D'Lo Brown signed autograph, and that's my second autograph I've ever gotten of D'Lo Brown, quite frankly. And I have a Carlito, Rockstar Spud, and the legend that is Mr. Jimmy Havoc as well, which I'm very proud of. So thank you so much for that, guys. Hopefully we can do more business, and we will do more business because we are partners. Also check out the Raging Falcon, OSW TV, and all that good stuff too. All the links will be in the description below on YouTube, SoundCloud, Spreaker. I'm still getting used to that name. And all the other websites as well, including the Swerve Talk Network. So, all of that is now out of the way, guys. It is now time for the main event of this podcast. We're going to end this podcast on this, the main event. 8 biggest talent raids in wrestling history. And we talk about talent raids. We talk about promotions, taking talent, and whatnot. So this is a very interesting thing. It was out with this, all 10 things WWE wants you to forget about Batista. I don't think no one really cares about Batista, quite frankly, but any event. So, Jack the Jobber did this one. 8 biggest talent raids. And number 8 was WWE's raid of New Japan Pro Wrestling at the beginning of the year, in fact, when they took Shinsuke Nakamura and 3 members of the club, Styles, Gallows, and Anderson. We all know what happened to Styles, Gallows, and Anderson, and Shinsuke Nakamura is a main player on NXT, a major player on NXT, soon to be a main player on the main roster too, which I'm very much looking forward to. Number 7, TNA scooping up WWE stars. Basically, TNA giving what people think a retirement home to ex-WWE superstars and not giving a flying fuck about what's on their roster. You know, not giving a monkeys about who's on their roster, the young talent that they have, you know, bringing in these ex-WWE superstars and whatnot. So, yeah. I mean, majority of their titles, the TNA World Championship, has been held by WWE superstars. I will run through the list. I will run through the list of ex-WWE talent that has held the TNA World Heavyweight Championship. Rob Van Dam, Kurt Angle, Jeff Hardy, Matt Hardy, Bully Ray, Bubba Ray Dudley, whatever you want to call him, Bobby Lashley, Mr. Anderson, Mr. Kennedy, Drew Galloway, and Mick Foley. Yes, Mick Foley. So it speaks for itself, really. And back in the day, like I said earlier on, guys, in the TNA part, which was the previous part, no, 2 parts before, you have to, you know, they used to focus on, you know, talent, you know, the X Division talent and AJ Styles. But AJ spent most of his career in TNA towards the end, anyway, fighting for a spot with the, you know, the X Division, the WWE talent as well, with Kevin Nash and stuff like that as well. You know, TNA are dropping the ball ever so slowly, and it's bad, man. And hell, at one point, the former founder, the former owner of TNA, Jeff Jarrett, always ended up putting the WWE, the TNA World Championship, which was the NWA title back in the day, he always ended up putting the belt on him for some reason. Not spreading it out towards the talent. But anyway. Number 6 is WWE's sustained raid of Ring of Honor talent. Now, this goes back to CM Punk. Eventually Samoa Joe, Daniel Bryan, Bryan Danielson, Kevin Owens, Seth Rollins, Claudio Castagnoli, you know him now as Cesaro. You know, and the list goes on and on and on. You know, Sami Zayn even, who's El Generico in Ring of Honor. You know, people like that, you know, people like that. And like I said, eventually Samoa Joe, even Austin Aries as well. Austin Aries being a Ring of Honor guy. You know, so, hey, credit to Triple H, man, giving these guys opportunities. You know, all these, you know, this fetish for a big guy and then a small guy and whatever, this kind of stuff. But I got to admit, when it comes to NXT, Triple H has a good eye for talent. There's no question about it. The next one is, I believe this is number 5, WWE taking a little attitude from ECW. Now, many people think, oh, WWE created the Attitude Era. WWE created WWF Attitude and this, that, and the other. Yeah, but they stole it from the ECW. Because ECW was just all about attitude. All about it. And for WWE to win in the Monday Night Wars, they had to do it. Because up until that point, and it's not just the Attitude Era itself, there's other people as well that played a part in WWE winning the Monday Night Wars, but the Attitude itself, the WWF Attitude, made a portion of that as well. And, you know, taking the Attitude out of it, you know, hell, even in 1999, just as ECW was going to go onto the Goofballs on the Nashville Network and TNN, the network that eventually killed him, in my opinion, the Dudley Boys and Taz signed with WWE. So basically, as they went on to TNN, they ended up, their 2 main talents, or 2 main stars, or 3 main stars, the Dudleys, well, 2 if you call it tag team, the Dudleys and Taz, ended up going to WWE. However, the Dudleys ended up being a success out of that, and Taz, well, Taz became a great announcer. He was a great announcer on Smackdown, you know, even ECW as well, and then he went to the TNA, and, you know, less said about that, the better. The next one is WCW's clear out of ECW. Let's face it, back in the day, they had great wrestlers, ECW. They had a lot of great wrestlers. They had Chris Benoit, they had Eddie Guerrero, they had Chris Jericho, and people like that. Even Dean Malenko as well. WCW signed that talent. Paul Heyman replaced him with Lucha Libre wrestlers. Rey Mysterio, Juventud Guerrero, Psychosis, Conan. WCW stole them as well. And, and basically just didn't do anything. And many people believe to this day that he only did it just because, we all know Bischoff hated ECW back in the day. And which is basically, at the end of the day, what happened when they were getting underused and that. Basically, 5 of the talent ended up going to WWE. Which leads me to the next one, because WWE turned WCW mid-card stars into stars. Now, we all know, because the Radicals, Guerrero, Saturn, Malenko, and Benoit ended up going to WWE in 2000, because they got sick of WCW, and Benoit became a world champion. Jericho became the first undisputed champion, because Jericho ended up going in 99, having the guts to interrupt The Rock on an edition of Monday Night Raw in August. And Benoit became a champion became the world champion eventually. Dean Malenko had a good run too. He was a light heavyweight champion in that. Saturn was infatuated about a mop, and Eddie Guerrero became WWE champion. So, it kind of worked out for them all in the end, with the exception of Saturn. But this is why WCW went out of business, because all they were caring about was giving people like Hogan and Halls and Nash, the spot and everything, and not doing anything else. And like I say, if you want a good example about it, go and see what happened in WCW from 2000 onwards. David Arquette won the world title, and the list goes on and on. Even the old age outlaws, fuck me. Anyway, you want a war, you got one, is the next one, which was Scott Hall and Kevin Nash joining WCW, basically. Scott Hall coming out 1 week from the crowd and everything, saying that you want a war, you got one, and then 1 week later, Nash shows up, hence the whole NWO thing. And that was a huge deal. Because even WWE sued them because they thought they were using their characters, the Diesel and Razor Ramon characters on WCW TV, which technically they weren't. Alright, they were coming out talking like them, but they didn't use their names. So, obviously, WWE lost that war, and it was a pretty stupid move anyway on WWE's part, just because of that, copyright infringements and shit, but because it didn't go anywhere with it. I mean, they were using the characters, the character style, but they weren't using the name. It was what it was, WCW and this thing, and number one, biggest one out of them all, WWE's birth. Now, I'm talking about WWE, WWF. Vince McMahon raiding, the territories back in the day. Right after his father gave him, he bought it from his father, and he raided all the territories to make the WWF and make what you see today on television programming. Which was, he took people like Jesse Ventura, he took people like Hulk Hogan, he took people like Piper, the Iron Sheik. I mean, I can give you probably listed. I mean, the list of the people he took is probably a 3-hour podcast in its own right. Seriously. I mean, like I say, he took Piper, he took Sheik, he took Ventura from AWA, and hell, he even took the biggest one of them all, Hulk Hogan, and built the company around him. And hell, at one point, he even invaded, all of this led to WrestleMania, and from them raids he got, and from what I got in this video as well, from the raids he did and everything, he was smart enough because he got a national TV deal out of it and stuff like that, and hell, WrestleMania came along and stuff like that, and it was a pretty smart deal on on his part, quite frankly. And and it catapulted the WWE, WWF back then to what it is today, somewhat. And I use that with a straight face, of course. But there you have it, guys. There you have it. That is the end of the podcast. Hope you guys have enjoyed it. That was the 8 biggest raids talent raids in wrestling history, rather. I say WWE because usually they talk about WWE but that's the 8 biggest raids in wrestling history. Hope you guys have enjoyed that. Hope you guys have enjoyed this podcast as well. I will be back next week with episode 122. I'm looking to get some more guests on, but all of that will be in. I'm just going to let things flow for the time being, at least, because I've got other stuff on my mind at the moment. a lot of stuff on my mind. Like I say, I'm going back to work and, well, at the Butter Ground and stuff like that. So I gotta get that sorted first before I do anything else. But until then, guys, check out my WCPW podcast and my CWC podcasts this week. I will do them. They will be up on exclusive to youtube.com/AJW Wrestling Matters and the SoundCloud.com, where you can download every episode of my podcast for free. And until next time, guys, my name is Anthony Walker. Wrestling Matters. Enjoy the rest of the week, and I'll see you soon. Peace.
Well, enough is enough, and it's time for a change. Professional wrestling, this is it. This is us standing up. Yes, 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 yes. That's 13-14.
Cena, I am the best in the world.
'Cause that's the bottom line. 'Cause Stone Cold said so.